"You filthy black maid, you better stay away from my daughter." Evelyn Barrington's voice cut through the crisp afternoon like the crack of a whip. The winter sun shimmered on the marble walkway beside the koi pond, but the beauty of the scene shattered under her fury. Maya Williams stood in the garden, gently patting baby Olivia's back. The baby had been coughing moments earlier, milk dribbling from her lips, and Maya instinctively held her upright, tapping her back in slow, steady motions. Olivia gave a small hiccup of relief just as Evelyn appeared. "What are you doing to her?" Evelyn shrieked, striding across the lawn, silk robe billowing, eyes blazing with a strange, desperate intensity. "Give her to me." Before Maya could explain, Evelyn ripped Olivia from her arms. The baby let out a terrified wail, tiny fists clenching. "Don't you ever touch my child again." Evelyn's voice was louder now, deliberately carrying toward the open windows of the house. "I caught you hurting her, trying to make her choke." Maya's eyes widened in shock. "That's not true. She was choking already. I was." "Lies," Evelyn snapped, stepping closer. "You've been looking for an excuse to get close to her. You think I don't see it? You're here to cause trouble, to take advantage of my family." The words stung, but what made Maya's heart pound wasn't the insult, it was the realization of what this really was. She remembered 2 nights ago, walking through the side hall late in the evening to bring in Olivia's bottle. The muffled laughter, the creak of a door, and then Evelyn in a silk slip, wrapped in the arms of Richard Hale, Daniel's oldest friend. Evelyn's eyes had locked with hers for a split second, panic flashing there before the mask dropped. Now Maya understood. This wasn't about Olivia at all. This was about silencing her. "You're lying about me," Maya said quietly, trembling but firm, "because you know I saw." "Shut your mouth," Evelyn hissed, her face flushing, and with a sudden violent shove, she pushed Maya backward into the koi pond. The freezing water swallowed her, pulling a gasp from her lungs. If you feel for the character in this story, like this video and comment where you are watching from, because maybe someone near you is watching too. "You worthless black leech," Evelyn shouted, clutching the baby closer. "You're finished here. By tonight, you'll be gone, and if you breathe a word of your lies about me, I'll make sure no one hires you again." Maya hauled herself out of the pond, dripping, shivering. "I've told you, I wasn't hurting her," she said weakly. "Save it for someone who cares." Evelyn spat. Heavy footsteps sounded. Daniel Barrington appeared, his eyes scanning the scene, his wife with their crying daughter, Maya soaked and trembling. "What happened?" he demanded. "She was holding Olivia and hitting her on the back," Evelyn said quickly. "I caught her hurting our baby." Daniel turned to Maya. "Is that true?" "I was helping her breathe." Daniel cut her off, stepping forward, gripping a fistful of her wet hair. His voice was low, dangerous. "You work for me. You do not touch what isn't yours. Understand?" "Yes, sir," Maya whispered, her heart pounding with helpless rage. "Go inside and change," he ordered coldly. Maya walked away, humiliation burning hotter than the cold. Evelyn's eyes followed her, a faint smile curling at the corner of her lips. Later that evening, in Daniel's study, Thomas the butler entered with a tablet in hand. "Sir," he said quietly, "you need to see this." "Garden camera, this afternoon." Daniel frowned and pressed play. The footage showed Maya holding Olivia upright, patting her gently on the back, while the baby coughed and sputtered. Olivia soon calmed, Maya smiling and tucking the blanket around her until Evelyn appeared and tore the child away. Daniel's jaw tightened. "She was helping her," he muttered. "Yes, sir," Thomas said. Then he hesitated. "And there's more. One of the staff told me Mrs. Barrington has been spending time with Mr. Hale. I don't know if it's true, but..." Daniel's face hardened, a storm brewing behind his eyes. An hour later, Daniel knocked on the small apartment above the garage. Maya opened the door, wary. "I came to apologize," Daniel said, holding out a small bottle of cough syrup. "For what happened earlier. I saw the footage. You were protecting Olivia. My wife's accusations were unfounded." Maya's expression was unreadable. "She's trying to get rid of me," she said softly, "because I know something she doesn't want you to know." Daniel's gaze sharpened. "Is that so?" Maya didn't answer, but the silence between them said enough. "I'd like you to stay," Daniel said after a moment. Olivia needs you, and I need to know the truth. Maya hesitated, then nodded faintly. I'll think about it. As he left, Daniel's mind was no longer on the argument in the garden, it was on the shadow of betrayal that had just crept into his home. Daniel barely slept that night. The image of Maya, dripping wet and shivering under the weight of Evelyn's accusations, kept replaying in his mind alongside the butler's hesitant words about Richard Hale. By dawn, his decision was made. He needed answers, and not the ones his wife would give him. The estate was quiet in the early hours. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, sipping black coffee as the first light of day filtered through the tall windows. He was still in his robe when Thomas entered, carrying a small leather folder. "Sir," the butler said softly, "I've made discreet inquiries, as you asked, about Mr. Hale and Mrs. Barrington." Daniel gestured for him to continue. Thomas opened the folder and slid across a few photographs. Daniel's jaw clenched. The pictures were grainy but unmistakable. Evelyn and Richard seated close together in a dimly lit lounge, her hand resting on his knee. Another, the two of them leaving the hotel side entrance well past midnight. Daniel closed the folder slowly. "Thank you, Thomas. Not a word of this to anyone, especially not Maya." "I understand, sir," Thomas replied. "But if I may, Mrs. Williams is a good woman. What happened yesterday was wrong." Daniel didn't respond immediately. He was thinking of Olivia's wide, trusting eyes. The baby didn't understand the storm swirling around her, but she felt them. Children always did. By mid-morning, Daniel found himself walking the path toward the garage apartment. He knocked, and after a moment, Maya opened the door. She looked better than last night dry clothes, hair loosely tied back, but there was still a guarded wariness in her eyes. "Mr. Barrington," she said, her tone formal, "I know you probably don't want to see me," he began, "but I need to talk." Maya stepped aside, allowing him in. The apartment was modest, a small sofa, a neat kitchenette, and a few framed photos on the shelf, one of a smiling teenage boy. Daniel noticed her glance toward the picture before she turned back to him. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," he continued. "That Evelyn is trying to get rid of you because of something you know." Maya's expression tightened. "I didn't want to get involved, but now, after what she did yesterday, I think you deserve to know." She took a breath, steadying herself. "2 nights ago, I was coming through the side hall to get Olivia's bottle. I heard voices, laughing, and then I saw her. Evelyn. With Mr. Hale. They didn't see me at first. She was in a slip, and he had his hands on her. I left before they noticed, but she caught sight of me just before I turned the corner. I knew then she'd find a way to push me out." Daniel's hands curled into fists at his sides. "Richard Hale has been my friend for 20 years, he said quietly. "I trusted him like a brother." "I'm sorry," Maya said, and he believed she meant it. He forced a measured breath. "I don't want you to leave. In fact, I need you here closer to Olivia than ever, but for that to work, you'll have to be careful. Evelyn can't know that I'm aware of anything. Not yet." Maya hesitated. "That means I'd have to see her every day, work under her glare, knowing she's looking for any excuse to ruin me." "I'll protect you," Daniel said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "And when the time comes, she won't be able to touch you." Something in his voice, calm, but edged with steel, made Maya believe him. "All right," she said finally. "For Olivia." Later that day, the house was alive with its usual rhythm. The clatter of the kitchen staff, the hum of the vacuum in the east wing, the muffled chatter of gardeners outside. Maya returned to her duties, moving quietly through the nursery. Olivia was awake, lying in her crib with wide, curious eyes. Maya smiled softly, lifting her into her arms. From the doorway, Evelyn watched. Her lips curved into a saccharine smile. Well, still here, I see," she said, stepping into the room. "I suppose my husband believes in second chances. I don't." Maya kept her tone even. "I'm here to do my job, Mrs. Barrington. That's all." Evelyn tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "We'll see about that. One mistake, and you're gone." The tension was thick, but Maya said nothing. She focused on Olivia, humming softly until the baby's eyelids grew heavy. Evelyn lingered a moment longer, as if hoping for a slip, before finally sweeping out of the room. That evening, Daniel hosted a small dinner in the formal dining room, just the family and Richard Hale. Maya, serving discreetly alongside Thomas, kept her head down but her ears open. Richard laughed easily, as if the last few nights hadn't happened, as if he hadn't been caught on camera with another man's wife. Evelyn, resplendent in emerald silk, touched his arm lightly when she spoke to him, her eyes bright with something Daniel could now see for what it was. He watched them both carefully, speaking little, his mind working. He wasn't ready to confront them, not yet, but every moment, every glance, was evidence. And when the moment came, he intended to destroy them both. After the guests left, Maya passed Daniel in the hall. He gave the barest nod, just enough to let her know he'd seen what she saw, that they were on the same side now. In her small apartment later, Maya sat with a mug of tea, the day's events replaying in her mind. She thought of the boy in the photograph, the son she had lost years ago to illness, and of Olivia's tiny hand gripping her finger earlier that day. For the first time since taking this job, she felt something like purpose. Down in his study, Daniel poured himself a drink but didn't touch it. Instead, he opened the leather folder Thomas had given him and stared at the photographs inside. Betrayal burned in his chest, but he kept his face calm. This was a game now, and he intended to win. Somewhere upstairs, Evelyn laughed light and careless as she spoke on the phone. Daniel recognized the tone. She thought she was untouchable. She was wrong. The next morning dawned with a sky the color of steel, heavy with the promise of rain. Maya woke early, nerves already tight. She had agreed to stay for Olivia's sake, but every hour under Evelyn's roof felt like walking a narrow bridge over fire. She dressed in her plain uniform, pinned her hair back, and made her way to the nursery. Olivia greeted her with a sleepy smile, and for a moment, the tension faded. Maya cradled the baby, whispering softly, "You're the only reason I'm still here." Downstairs, Daniel was already in his study when Thomas entered with a tray of coffee. "She's calling Mr. Hale again," the butler said quietly. "It's becoming a habit." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he only replied, "Good. Let her think I'm blind. The longer she believes that, the better." He took a slow sip, his mind running through the plan forming in pieces each day. He wasn't ready to confront Evelyn, he needed more. Evidence that couldn't be explained away. Proof that would end both her lies about Maya and her sham of a marriage. Late that morning, Evelyn summoned Maya to the East Terrace. The request came through another maid, her tone sharp and hurried, as if Evelyn's words had stung her too. Maya carried Olivia in her arms, the baby content. Evelyn was seated beneath the white pergola, a breakfast spread in front of her, untouched. Richard Hale sat across from her, leaning back with the ease of a man too comfortable in another man's home. His gaze flicked over Maya, a small smirk tugging at his mouth. "Well, look who's still here," Evelyn said, her voice lilting but her eyes cold. "My husband insists on giving you another chance. I, however, am not so easily convinced." "I'm here to work, Mrs. Barrington," Maya replied evenly, setting Olivia gently in the stroller. Evelyn's lips curved into a tight smile. "And I'm here to ensure you don't forget your place." She glanced toward Richard, who chuckled quietly. "Isn't that right?" "Absolutely," Richard said, his tone oily. "Some people don't know when they've overstayed their welcome." Maya kept her expression neutral, but inside, her anger simmered. Every word, every calculated look between them, only confirmed the truth. They were working together not just in their affair, but in their effort to push her out. A gust of wind rattled the glassware on the table, and Olivia stirred in her stroller. Maya instinctively bent to adjust the blanket, but Evelyn's voice cracked through the air. "Don't touch her unless I say so," Richard laughed, the sound low and mocking. "Careful, Evelyn. She might be plotting to kidnap the baby." Evelyn smirked, as if the suggestion amused her. Maya straightened, meeting Evelyn's gaze for a heartbeat too long. It was dangerous, but she wanted Evelyn to see that she wasn't afraid, not anymore. That afternoon, Daniel called Maya to his study. She stepped inside, closing the door softly behind her. "I saw what happened on the terrace," he said, his tone low. "She's baiting you, and Richard, he's not just complicit, he's provoking you." "They want me gone," Maya said simply, "and they'll keep pushing until I either quit or give them a reason to fire me." Daniel leaned forward in his chair. Then don't give them one. In fact, give them the opposite. Make yourself indispensable. If Olivia cries for anyone, it should be you. If she eats, sleeps, and thrives under your care, I'll have even more reason to keep you here. Maya hesitated. That's dangerous. It'll make Evelyn hate me even more. Let her, Daniel said, his voice like steel. The more reckless she becomes, the easier it will be to expose her. Rain began to patter against the tall windows, soft at first, then harder. The sound seemed to seal their quiet pact. That night, the storm deepened, wind rattling the shutters. Maya was in the nursery, rocking Olivia to sleep, when raised voices carried up from the foyer. She couldn't make out the words, but she recognized Daniel's low, controlled tone and Evelyn's sharp, defensive replies. Then Richard's voice joined the mix. Maya moved closer to the door, straining to hear. You shouldn't be here this late, Daniel was saying. It's not appropriate. Don't tell me what's appropriate in my own life. Evelyn shot back. Richard is a friend. A friend doesn't spend the night in my house when I'm away, Daniel countered, his voice taut. There was a pause, then the creak of footsteps on the stairs. Maya quickly retreated to the rocking chair, pretending to be absorbed in soothing Olivia, as Evelyn swept into the nursery, Richard just behind her. Is she asleep? Evelyn asked curtly. Almost, Maya said softly, avoiding Richard's gaze. Good, then you can go, Evelyn replied. Richard and I will watch her for a while. Maya froze. She had never once seen Evelyn alone with Olivia without summoning a servant for assistance. I'm sure she'd sleep more soundly if… I said go. Evelyn interrupted sharply. Richard leaned against the doorway, smiling faintly. Don't worry, Maya. We won't harm the precious little one. Something in his voice made Maya's stomach turn. She glanced toward Olivia safe, for now, then slowly left the room. Downstairs, Daniel was waiting near the base of the stairs, his expression unreadable. They sent you out? He asked quietly. Yes, Maya whispered. Daniel's eyes darkened. Stay close tomorrow. Don't let her keep you away from Olivia for long. I'll handle the rest. As Maya returned to her apartment that night, the storm outside felt like a reflection of the one building inside the house. Evelyn was becoming bolder, Richard more arrogant. Daniel's quiet anger was sharpening into something dangerous. And Maya, caught in the middle, realized she was no longer just a bystander, she was part of the fight. Upstairs, in the nursery, Olivia whimpered in her sleep. Maya wished she could be there, to be the one to comfort her. But she knew tomorrow would bring another chance, and another move in the silent, growing war between truth and deceit. Morning light spilled across the Barrington estate, gilding the wet grass left by last night's storm. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine from the nearby grove. Maya arrived at the nursery early, hoping to see Olivia before Evelyn could interfere. She opened the door quietly and was relieved to find the baby still sleeping peacefully in her crib. Maya moved to straighten the blanket, her touch gentle, but her thoughts restless. Last night had left her uneasy. Evelyn's insistence on removing her from the room, coupled with Richard's mocking tone, gnawed at her. She knew they were testing boundaries not just hers, but Daniel's as well. Downstairs, Daniel was already dressed for the day, speaking quietly with Thomas in the foyer. When he saw Maya pass by, he motioned for her to join him in the study. Closing the door, he gestured toward a chair. I'm going to be away for part of the afternoon, he said. I need you to keep Olivia with you as much as possible. Don't leave her with Evelyn unless I'm present. Maya frowned. Do you think she'd… She trailed off, unable to say the words aloud. I think she's unpredictable when she's cornered, Daniel replied. And right now, she knows I'm watching her. Maya nodded slowly. I'll keep her close. By mid-morning, the household had fallen into its usual rhythm. Evelyn appeared in the breakfast room wearing a tailored cream suit, her hair swept up, her diamond earrings catching the light. Richard arrived not long after, striding in without knocking, as if the house belonged to him. We'll be in the conservatory. Evelyn announced to no one in particular, her eyes sliding over Maya as though she were invisible. Maya ignored the slight and carried Olivia toward the sunroom, where the baby liked to nap in the warm light. She had just settled into the rocking chair when she heard faint voices drifting from the conservatory. Curiosity tugged at her. She edged closer, careful to keep Olivia secure in her arms. He suspects something. Richard's voice was low, edged with irritation. Thomas is watching me like a hawk. Daniel's always been paranoid, Evelyn replied coolly. But he has no proof. As long as we keep the focus on Maya, he won't look too closely at us. Maya's breath caught. She pressed her back against the wall, her heart thudding in her ears. If she's smart, she'll leave on her own, Richard continued. But if she doesn't, we might have to give her a reason. Evelyn gave a short, humorless laugh. Oh, I can think of a few. Maya retreated before they could see her, returning to the sunroom with her pulse still racing. She had suspected they were conspiring against her. But hearing it confirmed, hearing the malice in Evelyn's voice sent a chill through her. That afternoon, Daniel left for a business meeting in the city. Maya stayed close to the nursery, feeding and changing Olivia, reading softly to her as rain began to patter again against the tall windows. The house was quieter than usual, the kind of silence that felt staged. She kept listening for footsteps, voices, anything. Around 3 o'clock, Evelyn appeared in the doorway, her expression painted into a smile. "You can take the rest of the afternoon off," she said sweetly. "I'll keep Olivia with me." Maya shook her head. "Mr. Barrington asked me to stay with her until he returns." The smile faded, replaced by a flash of annoyance. "Maya, don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm her mother. You're just the help. And I'm following instructions," Maya said quietly. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Fine, but don't think this defiance will go unnoticed." She left without another word, her heels clicking sharply down the hall. The tension remained long after she was gone. When Daniel returned just before dinner, Maya met him in the hall and relayed what had happened. His jaw tightened. "She's growing desperate," he murmured. "That means she'll make mistakes. We just have to be ready to catch them." Dinner that night was a strained affair. Evelyn and Richard sat across from Daniel, their conversation overly casual, their laughter forced. Maya served the meal with quiet efficiency, but she could feel Richard's eyes on her, testing for a reaction. She gave him none. Afterward, as guests lingered in the parlor, Thomas slipped into the study where Daniel sat alone. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice, "the security team upgraded the system this morning as you requested. All cameras are now recording continuously, including the conservatory." Daniel nodded slowly, a shadow of satisfaction crossing his face. "Good. Leave it running. We won't move until we have everything we need." Upstairs, Maya rocked Olivia to sleep, her mind replaying the voices she'd overheard earlier. The storm inside the house was nearing its breaking point, and she knew that when it came, there would be no turning back. In another part of the estate, Evelyn and Richard were laughing in the conservatory, glasses clinking, oblivious to the silent watcher in the walls, the camera capturing every glance, every whispered word. The next day broke with a pale sun struggling through thin clouds, casting long shadows across the estate grounds. Maya woke with a dull heaviness in her chest. The previous day's tension hadn't faded. She dressed quickly, determined to keep Olivia within reach at all times. As she approached the nursery, she heard Evelyn's voice drifting through the slightly ajar door. "Darling, it's time to wake up," she cooed, her tone dripping with a false sweetness Maya had learned to recognize. Pushing the door open, Maya found Evelyn standing over the crib, a smile plastered on her face that didn't reach her eyes. "I was just checking on her," Evelyn said, her voice edged with the faintest challenge. "You can take over." Maya lifted Olivia gently, noting the baby's sleepy sigh of comfort as she rested against her shoulder. Evelyn lingered, watching them with an expression that seemed to be measuring something. "You're very attached to her," she said casually. "It's almost as if you think she's yours." "She's not mine," Maya replied evenly. "But she's my responsibility, and I take that seriously." Evelyn's smile hardened. "Be careful, Maya. Responsibility can be misunderstood." Maya said nothing, but the warning hung in the air long after Evelyn swept out of the room. Downstairs, Daniel was reviewing documents in the study when Thomas entered, his face set in quiet urgency. "Sir, the new camera feeds are live. I thought you might want to see last night's footage." He set a laptop on the desk and queued up a file. Daniel leaned in, eyes narrowing as the images flickered across the screen. Evelyn and Richard in the conservatory, their heads close, hands touching, voices muffled but their intimacy unmistakable. It wasn't just the physical closeness, it was the tone, the kind that belonged to people who thought no one was watching. "Keep this secure," Daniel said, his voice low, "and make copies." "Already done," Thomas replied. "And there's something else you might want to hear the audio from the hallway camera outside the nursery." He pressed play. Evelyn's voice came through, sharper now. "She's a problem, Richard. As long as she's here, I can't breathe." Richard chuckled darkly. "Then let's make sure she can't breathe, metaphorically speaking. Push her until she quits. If that doesn't work, we'll find a way to make Daniel think she's dangerous." Daniel's hand tightened on the edge of the desk. He could feel the old rage rising in him, the kind he usually kept buried beneath layers of composure. "Leave it running," he said quietly. "They won't see it coming." Upstairs, Maya was settling Olivia for a nap when she noticed a folded note tucked under the baby's blanket. She frowned, pulling it free. The handwriting was unfamiliar, neat, deliberate. "You should leave while you can. She won't stop until you're gone." Maya's first instinct was to think of Evelyn, but the tone didn't match her style. Evelyn would never warn her. She'd threaten outright. This felt like someone inside the house, someone who knew what was brewing. When Daniel returned to the nursery later to check in, Maya hesitated before showing him the note. He studied it, his brow furrowing. "This handwriting belongs to Margaret, the housekeeper. She's been here for decades. If she's warning you, it's because she's seen something." "Do you trust her?" Maya asked. "With my life," Daniel said without hesitation. "But if Evelyn suspects she's helping you, Margaret could lose everything." That evening, Evelyn and Richard left for a charity gala in the city. The moment the car pulled away, the atmosphere in the house seemed to exhale. Margaret appeared at the nursery door, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Mr. Barrington said you wanted to speak to me," she said in a hushed tone. Maya nodded. "You left the note?" Margaret glanced toward the hall before stepping inside. "Yes. I've been here long enough to know when danger's brewing. I've seen Evelyn like this before, mean, calculating. But this time, she's worse. She wants you gone because you know about her and Mr. Hale, and she'll use Olivia to do it if she has to." Maya's stomach knotted. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you care for that baby in a way her own mother doesn't," Margaret said simply. "And because I've seen too many good people destroyed by lies in this house." When Daniel returned from his office later that night, Margaret slipped into the study and quietly relayed what she'd told Maya. Daniel listened in silence, then thanked her and promised her protection. The trust in her eyes was the kind of trust he didn't take lightly. Near midnight, the rain began again, pattering softly against the tall windows. Maya sat in her small apartment, Olivia's baby monitor beside her, when a noise from the hall caught her attention, a door creaking open where no one should be at that hour. She moved quietly to the window and looked down toward the driveway. The headlights of a car were just disappearing into the mist. Evelyn and Richard weren't supposed to be back until late, yet here they were, leaving again. Something about it didn't sit right. She picked up the phone and called Daniel. "They just left the house," she whispered. "At midnight?" His voice sharpened instantly. "Stay with Olivia. Lock the door." In his study, Daniel opened the live camera feeds, scrolling through angles until he found them. Evelyn and Richard slipping into the garage, exchanging something small papers, before driving off. He hit the record button and saved the clip. By the time they returned, the house was silent. But Daniel was waiting. His expression calm but unreadable. Evelyn breezed past him with a practiced smile. "You're up late," she remarked lightly. "Just working," he replied. But inside, he knew the noose was tightening and soon, they'd hang themselves with their own rope. Upstairs, Maya rocked Olivia back to sleep, unaware that in the next few days, the fragile balance inside the Barrington estate was going to shatter completely. The morning after Evelyn and Richard's late-night excursion, the Barrington estate felt different. The air was heavier, the staff quieter, as if they too sensed the tension running under the polished surface. Maya rose early, still unsettled by what she'd seen the night before. She moved through her routine with deliberate calm, feeding Olivia, changing her, humming softly, but her mind kept circling back to the garage, the exchange, and Daniel's clipped voice over the phone. Downstairs, Daniel was already in the study, his tie loosened, a coffee cooling beside a laptop. He had been reviewing the previous night's camera footage since dawn. There was no audio in the garage, but the images were clear. Evelyn taking a slim envelope from Richard, her expression sharp, his posture tense. It was not the body language of two people at ease. It was the look of conspirators moving something they didn't want seen. Thomas entered quietly, carrying a flash drive. "Sir, I pulled the full recording from all angles. You'll want to see this." He plugged it into the laptop and skipped ahead. From the conservatory feed, the conversation before their departure was partially audible. "Tonight's the last chance," Richard's voice muttered. "We can't keep this in the house." Evelyn's reply was quieter but cold. "I know, and when it's gone, she'll have no reason to stay." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She," he muttered under his breath. He didn't need to ask who they meant. Later that morning, while Evelyn was upstairs dressing for the day, Daniel found Maya in the nursery. Olivia was on the floor, kicking happily at a soft toy while Maya kept a watchful eye. "We need to talk," Daniel said. She glanced up, wary. "What happened?" "They're moving something out of the house, something important to whatever they're planning," he said. "And they made it clear you're the target. Whatever this is, it's the leverage they think they can use to push you out for good." Maya swallowed. "Do you know what it is?" "Not yet, but we're going to find out." The plan began quietly. While Evelyn spent the late morning in the library with Richard, Daniel sent Thomas to shadow them discreetly, keeping to service corridors and blind spots. Meanwhile, Maya stayed close to Olivia, but her senses were tuned for any unusual movement in the house. Around noon, Margaret appeared in the nursery doorway, her voice low. "They've locked the small study next to the master bedroom. It's been empty for years, but now Evelyn has the only key. Thomas says Richard was in there early this morning." Maya frowned. "What's in it?" "No one's been allowed in for a long time," Margaret replied. "But if they're using it now, it's not for anything good." When Daniel returned shortly after, Maya relayed the information. His eyes narrowed. "That study has an old safe built into the floor. If they're hiding something, it's in there." By mid-afternoon, Evelyn and Richard left for a meeting downtown. Daniel seized the opportunity. With Thomas keeping an eye on the driveway for their return, he led Maya to the locked study. Margaret met them there with a small bundle of keys, none of which fit. Daniel didn't waste time. Producing a thin metal pick from his desk drawer, he worked the lock until it gave with a quiet click. The room smelled faintly of dust and something sharper, paper and ink, maybe perfume. The curtains were drawn, the air dim. Against one wall, under a worn rug, they found the safe. Daniel knelt, working the dial with steady precision. When it opened, what lay inside made Maya's breath catch. Stacks of photographs, envelopes stuffed with cash, and a small silver flash drive. Daniel took the drive first, slipping it into his pocket. He thumbed through the photographs. Most were of Evelyn and Richard in compromising situations, taken in various locations. But at the bottom was a single image that stopped him cold. Maya, in the nursery, holding Olivia. It was recent, no more than a week old, and had been printed with a handwritten note along the margin. "Use this." Maya stared at it, her stomach twisting. "They're going to make it look like I—" "Yes," Daniel said, his voice low but firm. "They're building a case to frame you, probably to say you're trying to take Olivia, or that you're unfit to be near her." Margaret looked stricken. "They'll destroy her reputation." Daniel gathered the items into a leather folder. "Not if I destroy theirs first." They relocked the study and returned everything to its place, save for the flash drive and the incriminating photograph. Minutes later, Thomas signaled from the hall. Evelyn and Richard's car was pulling up. Maya returned to the nursery, heart pounding, forcing herself into the rhythm of feeding Olivia as if nothing had happened. Evelyn entered a short while later, her smile practiced. "Everything all right here?" she asked, her gaze flicking over Maya. "Perfectly fine," Maya replied evenly. Evelyn lingered a moment, as though trying to read her, then left. That night, in the privacy of his study, Daniel plugged the flash drive into his laptop. Maya sat across from him, her hands clenched in her lap. The files inside were revelation emails, scanned documents, even financial records tying Evelyn and Richard to accounts in the Cayman Islands. The dates and amounts suggested not just an affair but a long-term scheme to siphon funds from the family trust. "This is enough to end them both," Daniel said, a hard edge in his voice. "But we need to be careful. If they sense we have this, they'll accelerate whatever they've planned for you." Maya nodded, her resolve tightening. "So we wait and watch, and when they make their move, we'll be ready," Daniel finished. Outside, the wind had begun to rise again, rattling the shutters. The house seemed to hold its breath, every creak and whisper charged with the knowledge that the war inside its walls was about to reach a point of no return. Upstairs, Evelyn slept soundly, unaware that the very tools she meant to use against Maya were now in Daniel's hands. And in that quiet, dangerous calm, the first threads of her undoing began to weave into place. The next morning, the estate buzzed with a strange mix of energy, too many footsteps in the halls, too many hushed conversations cut short when Maya entered a room. She could feel the tension pressing in on her from all sides, but she kept her face composed as she carried Olivia down to the breakfast room. Daniel was already there, sipping his coffee with deliberate slowness. He gave Maya the faintest nod, an unspoken reminder to stay steady. Evelyn swept in moments later, dressed immaculately in a pale blue silk dress, Richard trailing behind her with that smug air he always carried. "Good morning," Evelyn said with a brightness that felt sharp enough to cut. "I trust you slept well, Maya?" "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied, setting Olivia into her high chair. She slept through the night. Evelyn moved to pour herself tea but kept her gaze on Maya. "That's good to hear. I'd hate for her to be disturbed." Richard smirked, glancing at Evelyn as if sharing a private joke. Maya kept her eyes on Olivia, refusing to take the bait. Daniel broke the silence. "Evelyn, I'll need you at the downtown office later today. We have some paperwork that requires your signature." Evelyn hesitated, clearly not expecting this. "Today? I have other plans." "This won't wait," Daniel said firmly. "It's important." There was a flicker of irritation in her eyes, but she simply smiled and said, "Of course." After breakfast, when Evelyn and Richard retreated to the library, Daniel caught Maya's arm gently. "While I have her downtown, Thomas will watch Richard. This is our chance to see if he moves anything else from that study." Maya nodded. "What do you need me to do?" "Stay with Olivia. Keep things normal. If Evelyn or Richard suspects anything, this falls apart." Midday came, and Evelyn left with Daniel, her annoyance poorly hidden. Thomas stationed himself discreetly near the east wing, eyes on the study door. Not long after, Richard emerged from the library and headed upstairs. He glanced around before unlocking the study and slipping inside. Thomas waited until he was certain Richard was occupied, then moved swiftly down the hall to alert Margaret, who had the master key to the upstairs linen closet directly opposite the study. From that vantage point, she could see enough to confirm what he was doing. Richard emerged 10 minutes later carrying a slim briefcase, his face tense. He didn't notice Margaret watching from the shadows. By the time Daniel and Evelyn returned, Richard was gone from the estate entirely, his car no longer in the driveway. Evelyn seemed distracted, glancing around as though expecting someone. Maya stayed in the nursery, rocking Olivia, listening to the muted sounds of their arrival. An hour later, Thomas entered the nursery quietly. "He's taken something from the study," he said. Margaret saw it, a briefcase, likely more evidence or money. Maya frowned. "Do you think he's moving it out of the city?" "Possibly," Thomas replied. "Daniel will want to know." That evening, Daniel called Maya to his study. He stood near the desk, the flash drive from the safe still in his pocket. "Richard's getting nervous," Daniel said, "which means Evelyn is too. Whatever they had in that safe wasn't the only thing they're hiding." "Then we're running out of time," Maya said. Daniel nodded slowly. "I've set a meeting with my attorney tomorrow. If we can get this to him without them knowing, we can freeze their access to the accounts before they realize they're exposed." Just then, the study door opened without a knock. Evelyn stepped inside, her smile fixed but her eyes sharp. "Discussing something important?" she asked lightly. "Business," Daniel said without missing a beat. "The kind you wouldn't find interesting." Evelyn tilted her head, studying him. "Everything in this house interests me." Her gaze shifted to Maya, lingering a moment too long before she turned and left without another word. The moment the door closed, Daniel exhaled. She knows something's shifted. Then she'll come after me harder, Maya said quietly. Yes, Daniel agreed. But she'll make mistakes. That night, long after the household had gone still, Maya sat in her small apartment, staring at the baby monitor. The green light blinked steadily, Olivia's soft breathing a comfort, but every creak of the old house, every whisper of wind against the windows, kept her on edge. Near midnight, she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her door. Slow, deliberate, she stood, moving silently toward the door, her heart pounding. The footsteps stopped just outside. For a moment, there was nothing. Then a faint scrape, like paper sliding under the door. She waited until the steps receded before bending to pick it up. Another note. This one. The handwriting hurried. They'll act tomorrow. Protect the child. Maya's blood ran cold. She tucked the note into her pocket and didn't sleep the rest of the night, her mind racing through possibilities. Morning would come soon enough, and with it, whatever move Evelyn and Richard had been preparing for. And when it did, she knew the fragile truce inside the Barrington estate would shatter completely. Dawn broke gray and heavy over the Barrington estate, the kind of sky that pressed low on the horizon and made every sound seem sharper. Maya hadn't slept. She kept Olivia close all night, every creak in the old beams making her heart jump. The note in her pocket felt like a live ember, its warning echoing in her head. They'll act tomorrow. Protect the child. Tomorrow had arrived. Downstairs, Daniel was already in the study, his suit jacket draped over the back of his chair. His eyes were tired but focused, scanning through camera footage from the night. He looked up as Maya entered with Olivia. Any trouble last night? Footsteps outside my door, she said. And this. She handed him the note. He read it once, his jaw tightening. Margaret's handwriting. She must have overheard something. He stood, moving to the tall cabinet in the corner and retrieving a small lockbox. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a discreet, battery-powered camera. I want you to keep this in the nursery, he said. If anything happens while I'm not there, we'll have proof. Maya took it, nodding. Do you think they'll really try something today? The note makes it likely, Daniel replied. And if they do, we'll be ready. By mid-morning, the estate was unusually quiet. Evelyn appeared at breakfast but barely touched her food, her smile brittle. Richard didn't show at all. The absence felt intentional, a silence designed to set Maya on edge. After breakfast, Evelyn found her in the nursery. I'll take Olivia for her walk today, she said, holding out her arms. Maya didn't move. Mr. Barrington asked me to stay with her. Evelyn's smile tightened. Maya, I don't want to have to remind you of your position here, and I don't want to have to remind you that he's my employer, Maya replied softly, steadying her voice. Evelyn's eyes flickered, the mask slipping for just a moment before she turned sharply and left. The hours crawled. Daniel left for a meeting with his attorney, Thomas in tow. Maya kept Olivia close, feeding her lunch in the sunroom while the rain began to patter against the glass roof. Around 2 o'clock, Richard finally appeared, his manner unusually cordial. Mind if I keep you company? He asked, stepping inside. Maya didn't answer, focusing instead on Olivia, who was happily gumming a teething ring. Richard strolled around the room, his hands in his pockets, eyes roving over the space. You know, he said casually, Evelyn's been worried about you. She thinks you're under too much stress to be caring for a child. Maya kept her tone even. Olivia's fine. For now, he said, his gaze sliding to the baby. But accidents happen, and if they do, you wouldn't want anyone to think you weren't capable. The implication was as clear as the smirk on his face. I should get back to the nursery, Maya said, standing. Of course, Richard replied, stepping aside but letting his shoulder brush hers as she passed. Back in the nursery, she placed the small camera Daniel had given her in the corner near the bookshelf, angled toward the crib. She didn't have long to wait. Less than an hour later, Evelyn entered with a bright smile. Why don't you take a little break? I'll watch her for a bit. I'm fine, Maya said. Really, I insist, Evelyn replied, moving closer. She reached for Olivia, but Maya stepped back. Not today. Evelyn's eyes hardened. You're making this difficult, Maya. That's a mistake. She turned sharply and left, her heels striking the hardwood like small hammers. The rest of the afternoon was a tense blur. By the time Daniel returned, the sky was darkening, and the rain had turned to a steady downpour. "Anything?" he asked as soon as he stepped into the nursery. Maya shook her head. "Not directly, but they've been circling, testing." Daniel exhaled, his shoulders tight. "Then it's coming soon. We'll be ready." That night, the house settled into its usual quiet, but Maya's nerves stayed taut. Near midnight, Olivia stirred in her crib, fussing. Maya soothed her back to sleep, then noticed movement in the dim light, a shadow slipping across the nursery door. She froze, listening. The handle turned slightly, then stopped. After a long moment, the shadow moved away. Early the next morning, Daniel was in the study when Thomas brought in the camera from the nursery. They connected it to the laptop, the footage flickering to life. The timestamp matched what Maya had felt: someone approaching the door, pausing, then retreating. But the angle caught just enough of the face to make Daniel's jaw lock. Evelyn. She hadn't knocked. She hadn't called out. She'd simply stood there, hand on the handle, waiting. Daniel shut the laptop with a quiet finality. "This is it," he said. "Tomorrow, we end this." Maya, standing in the doorway, felt the weight of his words. The storm they'd been waiting for was about to break, and when it did, nothing in the Barrington estate would be the same again. The morning of reckoning dawned with a pale, deceptive calm. The rain had stopped in the night, leaving the ground soaked and glistening. The Barrington estate looked serene from the outside, but inside, the air was taut, like a bowstring pulled to its limit. Daniel moved through the house with quiet precision, making calls from his study and sending Thomas on seemingly mundane errands that were anything but. Maya kept Olivia close, sensing that whatever was coming would happen today. She could feel it in the way Evelyn moved, too smooth, too composed, like a predator masking its anticipation. Around mid-morning, Evelyn appeared in the nursery doorway, her voice honeyed. "Maya, I've decided to take Olivia for a drive today, just the two of us. I think we need some mother-daughter time." Maya's grip on the baby tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. Mr. Barrington asked me to keep her here." Evelyn stepped inside, her heels sinking slightly into the plush rug. "Maya, you're beginning to sound like you think you make the rules here." "No," Maya said evenly. "I just follow the ones that keep Olivia safe." Evelyn's eyes flashed, the mask slipping for a second before she turned on her heel and walked out, her perfume lingering like a warning. 10 minutes later, Richard appeared, leaning casually in the doorway. "Evelyn's upset. You should really make things easier on yourself. A little cooperation could go a long way." Maya ignored him, focusing on Olivia, who was babbling happily to her stuffed rabbit. Richard's tone dropped. "It would be a shame if something happened to your employment here, or your reputation." He let the words hang in the air before walking away. By noon, the tension had reached a fever pitch. Daniel came to the nursery, closing the door behind him. "It's going to happen this afternoon," he said quietly. "I've spoken to my attorney, and the police are on standby, but we need them to show their hand first." Maya's heart thudded. "How?" "Evelyn's planning to stage an incident with Olivia, something to make it look like you endangered her. The camera will catch everything, and the moment it does, we move." The hours crawled. Maya kept Olivia in sight at all times, playing with her on the nursery floor, feeding her lunch, and reading her stories. Outside, the sun had begun its slow descent when Evelyn returned, this time without pretense. She strode into the nursery, Richard right behind her. "I'll be taking her now," Evelyn said, reaching for Olivia. Maya shifted, placing herself between them. "You're not taking her anywhere." "You think you can stop me?" Evelyn snapped. Richard stepped forward, his hand brushing his jacket pocket in a way that made Maya's stomach tighten. "Step aside, Maya," he said, "or you'll regret it." Maya didn't move. "Mr. Barrington will be here any second," she said. "Do you really want him to see this?" Evelyn's lips curled into a cold smile. "Oh, he'll see it. Exactly the way I want him to." She lunged forward, grabbing for Olivia. Maya twisted away, and the baby began to cry at the sudden commotion. Evelyn's voice rose in a shrill accusation. "She's hurting her. She's trying to take my baby." Richard moved quickly, pretending to pull Maya off, but his grip on her arm was painfully real. In the corner, unnoticed by them, the small camera's red light blinked steadily. The door burst open, and Daniel strode in, Thomas on his heels. "Enough," Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. Evelyn froze, still clutching Olivia, while Richard released Maya's arm. "What is this?" Daniel demanded. She was trying to take Olivia," Evelyn sputtered, her performance almost convincing if not for the calm fury in Daniel's eyes. "Really?" Daniel said, moving toward the bookshelf. He reached for the small camera, pulling it free and holding it up, "because this will tell me exactly what happened." Evelyn's face paled. "Daniel." "Save it," he said sharply. "Thomas. Take this to the study. Now." Richard stepped forward. "You can't just—" "I can," Daniel said, his tone like steel. "And I will." Thomas left with the camera, and Daniel turned back to Evelyn. "I've tolerated your games long enough. You and Richard have been lying to me, stealing from me, and now you've tried to frame an innocent woman. It ends today." Evelyn's composure cracked, anger and fear warring on her face. "You have no proof." "I have more than proof," Daniel said. "I have everything I need to make sure neither of you ever set foot on this property again." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "And if you think the police won't be interested in your offshore accounts, think again." Richard's smirk faltered for the first time. "You're bluffing." "Try me," Daniel said. At that moment, Thomas returned, placing a laptop on the dresser. He pressed play, and the footage rolled. The room was silent except for the tinny sound of their own voices, Evelyn's false accusations, Richard's forceful grip, Maya's calm refusals. It was damning. When the clip ended, Daniel looked at them both. "Pack your things. You have 1 hour." Evelyn's mouth opened, then closed again, no words coming. Richard muttered something under his breath, but even he knew the fight was over. As they left, Daniel turned to Maya. "It's over for now, but they won't give up easily. We'll need to stay ready." Maya held Olivia close, the baby's small hand clutching her blouse. "I'm not going anywhere," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "Good. Neither am I." Outside, the sky darkened again, as if the storm that had been brewing for weeks still had more to give. The next day began with an eerie quiet that felt unnatural for the Barrington estate. Evelyn and Richard's departure the night before had been abrupt, their voices echoing down the marble halls as they argued in hushed, furious tones while packing. By morning, their rooms stood empty, closets bare, drawers yanked open, a faint trace of Evelyn's perfume lingering in the air like a ghost. But Daniel knew better than to believe their absence meant safety. At breakfast, Maya sat across from him at the long oak table, Olivia in her high chair between them. Daniel sipped his coffee, his eyes distant. "They won't stay gone," he said finally. "People like Evelyn don't walk away without trying to take something or someone with them." Maya fed Olivia a spoonful of mashed banana, her voice low. "She'll come back for Olivia. If she does, she'll have to go through me first," Daniel replied. But there was a shadow in his expression that told Maya he wasn't underestimating the danger. After breakfast, Daniel left for a meeting with his attorney to expedite legal protections, restraining orders, custody reinforcement, and financial blockades. In his absence, Maya kept to the nursery, playing with Olivia on the floor. Margaret stopped by with a small tray of tea and biscuits, her eyes soft with concern. "You've been through hell, dear, but you've held your ground." "It's not over," Maya said quietly. Margaret glanced toward the door, then leaned in. "I heard from Thomas Richard was seen at the docks this morning, talking to a man who handles freight shipments. That's not coincidence." Maya's stomach nodded. "Do you think they're planning to take her out of the country?" "If that's their plan, they'll move quickly. The less time you have to react, the better for them." Margaret's words settled heavily in the air. Maya knew she couldn't just sit and wait. Mid-afternoon brought a sudden shift in the household. One of the younger maids came running to the nursery. "There's a car parked at the end of the drive. Dark windows. Hasn't moved in half an hour." Maya's pulse quickened. She lifted Olivia into her arms, rocking her instinctively. "Where's Thomas?" "Outside, checking the grounds," the maid replied. Minutes later, Thomas entered, his expression grim. It's them. They're watching the house. He turned to Maya. Stay in the nursery, lock the door, and keep the phone close. The rest of the afternoon passed in tense increments, each hour feeling longer than the last. Maya kept Olivia entertained with songs and books, but every sound from outside made her glance toward the window. The car at the end of the drive remained, unmoving. When Daniel returned just after sunset, he was met at the door by Thomas. They spoke in low voices before Daniel headed straight to the nursery. "It's them," he said without preamble. "I've called the police. They'll do a sweep, but Evelyn will claim she's just visiting her property. We can't stop her from sitting out there yet." "And if she tries to take Olivia?" Maya asked. "That's why I'm moving you both into the guest wing tonight," Daniel said. "There's only one entrance, and it locks from the inside. Thomas will stand guard." The relocation was swift. Maya gathered Olivia's things and followed Daniel down the long corridor to the far wing of the estate. The guest suite was spacious but felt more like a safe house than a bedroom, its heavy door and reinforced lock an unspoken reminder of the danger outside. Night fell, and the house settled into uneasy silence. Maya dozed in the armchair beside Olivia's crib, waking at every creak of the floorboards. Around midnight, she heard the faintest rattle at the door handle. She was on her feet instantly, her heart pounding. Thomas's voice came from the hall, firm and commanding. "Step away from the door, Mrs. Barrington." There was a pause, then Evelyn's voice, syrupy and venomous all at once. "You can't keep me from my daughter forever." "That's exactly what I can do," Thomas replied, "and will." Footsteps retreated down the hall. Maya stood frozen for a moment before returning to the crib. Olivia stirred but didn't wake. When morning came, Daniel was waiting in the sitting area outside the suite. His expression was grim, but resolute. "She tested the waters last night," he said. "She'll try again. But we're going to be ready. The restraining order should be finalized by tomorrow." Maya nodded, holding Olivia close. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect her." Daniel met her gaze and spoke with quiet conviction. "So will I." Outside, the car was gone, but tire marks in the gravel showed it had been there through the night. The war for Olivia wasn't over. It had only entered its next, more dangerous phase. And as Maya stepped out into the hallway, she knew she could no longer just defend. She would have to be ready to strike back. The following morning broke with a pale winter light seeping through the tall windows of the guest suite. The estate felt unnaturally still, as though it were holding its breath. Maya had barely slept, her ears attuned to every distant creak and whisper of the house. Olivia stirred in her crib, rubbing her tiny fists against her eyes, and Maya lifted her into her arms, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. She had promised herself that the child would never feel the fear that now ran through her own veins. Down the hall, Daniel was already in motion, speaking with Thomas and Margaret in low, urgent tones. When he saw Maya approaching with Olivia, he straightened and offered a faint smile meant to reassure, though his eyes betrayed the strain. "The restraining order will be official by this afternoon," he said, "but that doesn't mean she won't try something before then. We have to be vigilant until it's in place." Thomas nodded. "I've doubled the grounds patrol. Anyone who doesn't belong here will be stopped before they get within 50 yards of the house." "And if she's already inside?" Maya asked quietly. Daniel's gaze hardened. "Then she's trespassing, and we'll have the law on our side." Breakfast was subdued, the clink of cutlery against china far too loud in the tense air. Margaret hovered nearby, topping off coffee cups and offering warm biscuits, her presence a silent show of solidarity. Olivia gurgled happily in her high chair, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around her. Daniel glanced at his watch. "I have to meet my attorney downtown to sign the final papers. I'll be gone for 2 hours. Thomas will be with me. Margaret, stay with Maya and Olivia until I get back." Maya's stomach tightened. "Do you think that's wise? Leaving the estate?" "It's necessary," Daniel replied. "And with the measures we have in place, they'd have to be reckless to try anything now." But recklessness was exactly what Maya feared. The morning passed quietly at first. Margaret chatted with Maya as they played with Olivia in the sunroom, telling gentle stories about her own grandchildren. Yet every so often, Margaret's eyes flicked toward the window, her ears straining for any sound from outside. Around late morning, the uneasy peace cracked. The faint hum of an engine reached them from the gravel drive, followed by the muffled thud of a car door. Margaret moved to the window and stiffened. "It's her," she whispered. Maya's pulse spiked. "Evelyn?" Margaret nodded grimly. "And she's alone, or at least she wants us to think so." They could hear footsteps approaching the front door, slow and deliberate. Margaret moved toward the hallway, but Maya caught her arm. "She's here for Olivia. Don't open it." The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. When there was no answer, the ringing turned into pounding. "Maya." Evelyn's voice cut through the house, dripping with feigned concern. "I know you're in there. We need to talk." Maya's arms tightened around Olivia, whose face began to crumple at the sound. She backed into the corner of the room, trying to quiet the baby. Evelyn's voice grew sharper. "If you think you can keep her from me, you're mistaken. She's my daughter. You have no right. You lost that right when you tried to frame me," Maya murmured under her breath, though she knew Evelyn couldn't hear her. Margaret returned from the hall, her face pale. "She's not leaving." The pounding stopped abruptly, replaced by the faint sound of a latch turning. Maya's heart lurched. "How did she—" "Side entrance," Margaret said, her voice tight. "She still has a key." Evelyn's heels clicked against the marble floor as she stepped into the house. "I don't want to cause a scene," she called out. "Just hand her over and we can avoid all this unpleasantness." Margaret positioned herself between the doorway and the sunroom, her frame deceptively solid for her age. "You need to leave, Evelyn." "Out of my way," Evelyn snapped. "Not until you're gone," Margaret said, her voice steady. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer. "You think you can stop me? You're just a servant. A servant who knows when to call the police," Margaret replied. The tension was broken by the sudden wail of a siren in the distance. Evelyn froze for half a heartbeat. Then her expression twisted into fury. "This isn't over," she hissed. She turned sharply and strode toward the side door, her heels striking the marble like gunshots. Minutes later, the siren grew louder, and a patrol car rolled into the drive. Daniel stepped out of a black sedan just behind it, his expression grim as he took in the scene. "She was here," Margaret said immediately. "She tried to come in through the side door." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Then she's just made the restraining order that much stronger." The police took statements, noting the attempted entry. Maya stayed in the sunroom with Olivia, holding her close, her hands trembling in the aftermath. When the officers left, Daniel joined her, his voice low but firm. "We're going to install a new security system today. Every lock, every code will change. She won't have access to anything." Maya nodded, her eyes still fixed on the window where she'd last seen Evelyn's car. "She's desperate, Daniel, and desperate people don't stop. Neither do determined ones," he said. "And I'm more determined than she is." Outside, the winter light was fading, the sky darkening into the first hint of evening. Maya knew they'd won a small battle today, but the war for Olivia's safety was far from over. The next move would come soon, and it would be even more dangerous. The next morning, the estate was a flurry of quiet but deliberate activity. A security van pulled into the drive at 8 sharp, 2 uniformed technicians stepping out with toolkits and equipment. Daniel had wasted no time after yesterday's incident. Every lock, camera, and alarm system in the house was being replaced. Maya stood in the nursery with Olivia on her hip, watching through the window as the technicians worked, her mind a storm of thoughts. The attempted break-in had been too bold, too brazen. It meant Evelyn was past the point of caution. She was willing to risk everything. Margaret entered, carrying a tray with tea and toast. "They'll have the new system up by noon," she said, setting it down. "Once it's done, she won't be able to get within 20 feet of the house without setting off alarms." "Do you really think that will stop her?" Maya asked. Margaret gave her a steady look. "It'll slow her down, and sometimes that's all you need to protect someone." Downstairs, Daniel was pacing in the study, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what it costs," he was saying. "I want a full perimeter camera system, facial recognition, motion sensors, everything. She's not getting near my daughter." When he hung up, Thomas stepped in. "The security company's running a background check on all current staff. If she's paid anyone off, we'll find out." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Good. We've been reacting to her moves for too long. It's time we get ahead of her." Around mid-morning, Maya was rocking Olivia in the sunroom when Thomas appeared in the doorway. his face grim. "We have a problem." She followed him to the study, where Daniel was standing by the desk, a single sheet of paper in his hand. He handed it to her, without a word. It was a printed photo, grainy but unmistakable, Maya leaving the estate grounds the week before with Olivia in her arms. The caption beneath read, "Nanny or kidnapper?" Her breath caught. Where did this come from? "Anonymous email," Daniel said. "Sent to me, the police, and half the local press. She's trying to make me look like I'm the threat," Maya said quietly. "Exactly," Daniel replied. "And if the wrong people believe it, she could use it in court." Thomas crossed his arms. "We should assume she's building a case to claim Maya's unfit or dangerous." "I've never hurt her," Maya said, her voice shaking. Daniel stepped closer, his tone steady. "I know that, and anyone who sees the truth will know it too. But she's counting on creating doubt." The day moved in sharp, tense moments. Outside, workers installed new motion sensors along the fence line. Inside, Daniel called his attorney, instructing him to prepare a formal rebuttal to any false claims. Margaret stayed close to Maya, as if sensing that Evelyn's next move might come at any moment. It did. Just after sunset, a loud knock echoed through the hall. Thomas opened the front door to find a uniformed Child Protective Services officer standing there, clipboard in hand. "We received an anonymous tip about potential endangerment of a minor," the officer said. Maya's stomach turned cold. "She called them," she whispered to Margaret. Daniel's voice was measured but firm. "You're welcome to come in and see for yourself. My daughter is perfectly safe." The officer followed them to the nursery, where Olivia sat on the rug, giggling as she stacked colorful blocks. Maya knelt beside her, gently running a hand over her hair. The officer observed quietly, asking a few routine questions. When the brief inspection was over, he closed his clipboard. "Everything appears in order," he said. "I'll file the report as unfounded." Daniel walked him to the door, his gratitude tempered by the knowledge of how close they'd come to a different outcome. When he returned, he looked at Maya. "She's not just coming for you through the courts. She's trying to turn every institution she can against you." "And if she keeps this up?" Maya asked. "Then we fight harder," Daniel said. "Every lie she tells will be met with proof of the truth." That night, the estate felt both safer and more under siege than ever. The new locks clicked into place, the cameras blinked softly in the corners, and the perimeter lights glowed against the darkness. But Maya knew walls and alarms could only do so much. Evelyn's real weapon wasn't force, it was manipulation, and she wielded it with precision. As Maya lay awake in the guest suite, Olivia breathing softly in the crib beside her, she made herself a promise. Evelyn might control the rules of polite society, but here, inside these walls, Maya would fight on her own terms. And when the time came, she wouldn't just defend, she would end it. By the following morning, the sharp edge of the previous night's tension had dulled, but it had not vanished. The estate now felt like a fortress, every door sealed with new locks, every hallway watched by cameras, every perimeter light casting long shadows over the grounds. Yet Maya knew the fortress wasn't impenetrable. Evelyn's danger came not from breaking walls, but from slipping through cracks. Daniel was in the study early, reviewing a stack of legal documents with his attorney over a video call. Maya could hear his voice carrying down the hall, clipped but controlled. He was securing more than just physical barriers, he was tightening every legal thread that connected Evelyn to the family. In the kitchen, Margaret brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead, sliding a steaming mug toward Maya. "You need to keep your energy up," she said. "She'll be looking for the next opening, and when it comes, you have to be ready." "I feel like I'm constantly ready," Maya replied, rubbing at the tension in her neck. "But she keeps coming in ways I don't see until it's too late." Margaret's eyes softened. "That's because she plays a long game. People like Evelyn don't throw the first punch, they make you swing first, so you look like the villain." The morning passed in a false calm. Olivia was content, babbling to her toys while Maya read to her from a worn picture book. Outside, Thomas patrolled the grounds, his presence a steady reassurance. Around noon, a delivery truck pulled up to the front gates. Thomas intercepted it, speaking with the driver before letting the truck through. He carried a large package into the foyer, addressed in elegant handwriting to Miss Olivia Barrington. Maya frowned. We're not expecting anything. No, Daniel said, emerging from the study. And that's why we're opening it carefully. He slit the tape with a letter opener and pulled back the flaps to reveal a plush teddy bear, soft and oversized, with a silk ribbon around its neck. Attached was a small envelope. Daniel slid the card out, his jaw tightening as he read, "For my sweet girl, Mommy misses you every day. I'll see you soon." "It's from her," he said flatly. Margaret's expression darkened. "She's testing the gates, seeing what she can send through without being stopped. And she's trying to get into Olivia's head," Maya added. "Make her believe Evelyn's absence is just a misunderstanding." Daniel handed the bear to Thomas. "Search it, every inch. I don't trust anything she touches." Thomas returned 15 minutes later, holding a tiny device in his palm, a GPS tracker sewn into the bear's seam. "She was trying to find out where Olivia sleeps," he said. Daniel's voice was icy. "Destroy it." The bear was gone within the hour, but its presence lingered like a foul taste in the air. Evelyn's reach was longer than any of them had hoped. That evening, after dinner, Daniel called Maya into the study. Olivia was with Margaret, happily occupied with her blocks. Daniel closed the door behind them. "I spoke with my investigator," he began. "We've been tracking Evelyn's movements. She's been meeting with a custody lawyer every other day. So she's going to try to take Olivia through the courts," Maya said. "Yes, and she's planning to use your past against you." Maya stiffened. "My past?" "Anything she can twist. Financial records, old addresses, employment history. She's looking for cracks." Maya swallowed hard. "Then we make sure there aren't any cracks to find." Daniel leaned forward. "That's why I need you to be absolutely above reproach in the coming weeks. No arguments in public, no visible tension with the staff. Every move you make needs to reinforce that you're the stable, safe presence in Olivia's life." "And if she pushes me?" Maya asked. "We document everything," Daniel said. "Every call, every encounter, every word she tries to use against you. When we go to court, we won't just defend, you'll be the one proving she's unfit." The resolve in his voice steadied her. For the first time in days, Maya felt like they had a strategy, not just a reaction. But later that night, as she rocked Olivia to sleep, the thought crept in unbidden. Evelyn was always a step ahead. She wouldn't wait for court if she saw an opportunity to strike sooner. And when she did, it wouldn't be with a teddy bear, it would be something that couldn't be undone. Maya tightened her arms around the child, whispering softly into the dark, "Not while I'm here." Outside, beyond the high iron gates, a lone car idled for a moment before disappearing into the night. Rain lashed against the tall windows of the Barrington estate the next morning, the gray light turning the rooms cold despite the fire crackling in the main sitting room. Maya moved through the nursery with Olivia on her hip, humming softly to keep the child calm. The storm outside felt like a mirror to the tension that had been building inside these walls for weeks. Downstairs, Daniel was on the phone with his investigator again, his voice low but sharp. "If she's meeting with that lawyer again today, I want eyes on them from the moment she leaves her hotel. And if she's planning anything, I want to know before she takes her first step." He hung up and turned to Thomas. "Have the staff stick to the main areas today. No one alone in the East Wing. If she's going to try something, she'll look for the weak points." By mid-morning, the storm had intensified, the wind rattling the shutters and howling through the trees that lined the drive. Maya stayed close to Margaret, feeling the older woman's steady presence as they played with Olivia on the floor of the sunroom. But just as Maya began to believe the day might pass without incident, Thomas appeared at the door, his raincoat dripping. "We've got movement at the north gate," he said. Daniel was there in moments. "Who?" "A delivery van. No markings. The driver says he has an order for the kitchen, but we're not expecting anything today." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Don't let it in." Thomas nodded, disappearing back into the rain. Minutes later, his voice crackled over the radio in Daniel's hand. "Driver just got a call on his cell and turned the van around, heading back toward town." Daniel's eyes met Maya's. That was a probe. She's testing response times now. The tension didn't ease after the van left. Every creak of the old house felt louder, every shadow on the lawn a possible threat. The storm gave cover for movement, and everyone knew it. Just after lunch, Margaret insisted Maya take a break and rest in the guest wing while she stayed with Olivia. Maya hesitated but finally agreed. exhaustion weighing heavy. She had barely reached the top of the stairs when she heard Olivia's sudden, sharp cry from the sunroom. Maya was running before her mind caught up, heart pounding. When she burst through the door, Evelyn was standing inside, rain dripping from her coat, one hand on Olivia's arm. Margaret stood between them, gripping Evelyn's wrist with surprising strength. "You're trespassing," Margaret said, her voice steady despite the fury in her eyes. "Let go of her." Evelyn's gaze flicked to Maya. "You think you can keep her from me? You think he'll choose you over me?" "Step away from her," Maya said, her voice low but lethal. Evelyn's lips curled into a mocking smile, but she released Olivia, who scrambled into Maya's arms, clinging tight. Thomas arrived seconds later, his bulk filling the doorway. "Out, now." Evelyn's expression shifted from mockery to cold fury. "This is far from over," she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You can build your walls and lock your doors, but you can't erase me from her life." Thomas escorted her out, but the damage was done. Olivia clung to Maya for the rest of the afternoon, her usual babbling replaced with quiet whimpers. Daniel returned from the study with his attorney on the line, detailing what had just happened. "This puts her in clear violation of the restraining order," he said. "It's grounds for immediate legal action." But later, when the house had settled into uneasy quiet and the rain had slowed to a drizzle, Maya sat in the nursery with Olivia asleep in her lap, staring out into the darkened grounds. Evelyn had made her move in daylight, in the middle of a storm, with the house fully staffed. That wasn't desperation, it was confidence. She was telling them she could get in whenever she wanted. Maya's stomach knotted with a cold certainty. The next time Evelyn came, she wouldn't just be testing the walls. She'd be trying to break them down completely. And if that happened, Maya would have to be ready to meet her head-on, no matter the cost. The morning after Evelyn's brazen intrusion, the estate buzzed with a different kind of urgency. The storm had passed, leaving the grounds damp and eerily quiet, but no one mistook the stillness for peace. Daniel convened the staff in the main hall, his voice clipped and authoritative. "Yesterday was a violation of the law and of our safety. From this moment on, no one enters the estate without prior clearance from me or Thomas. Every gate remains locked at all times. And if anyone sees Evelyn near the property, you alert us immediately." His gaze swept the room, lingering on each face until he was certain they understood. Maya stood near the back, holding Olivia. She could feel the subtle shift in the air. Fear was no longer the dominant emotion. It was anger. Margaret, who had faced Evelyn head-on, looked particularly resolute. "I'll keep Olivia with me in the kitchen when you're not with her," she told Maya later, her tone brisk. "Easier to keep eyes on her that way." Daniel spent most of the morning in the study with his attorney, preparing an emergency petition to the court. "We can push for full supervised visitation for her, pending the violation," he explained to Maya when she brought him a cup of coffee. "It'll limit her access until the custody hearing." "And if she ignores that too?" Maya asked. Daniel's eyes hardened. "Then the consequences get more severe. But for now, the goal is to tie her hands legally so she can't try this again." Just before noon, Thomas appeared at the study door. "Sir, you should see this." He handed Daniel a manila envelope. Inside were a series of photographs, Maya walking in the park with Olivia, playing with her in the yard, even sitting on the sunroom floor reading. The angles were distant, but the intent was clear. Someone had been following them. Maya's stomach dropped. "How long has she had someone watching us?" "At least a week, maybe more," Thomas said, "judging by the weather in some of these shots." Daniel flipped through the photos, his expression unreadable. "She's building a dossier trying to twist normal, everyday moments into something suspicious." "Or she's trying to scare us," Maya said. Daniel set the photos aside with deliberate calm. "Either way, she's not getting the reaction she wants. We stay the course." The rest of the day passed under the weight of constant vigilance. Maya stayed indoors with Olivia, while Thomas made extra rounds outside. Margaret prepared dinner early, her movements brisk, as though cooking could ward off trouble. Just after sunset, the gate intercom buzzed. Thomas answered, his voice cautious. "Yes?" A man's voice crackled through. "Delivery for Mr. Barrington Flowers." Thomas frowned. "We're not expecting any delivery. Who's it from?" Doesn't say, the voice replied. But the card says for Olivia. Maya, listening from the hall, felt her chest tighten. Daniel stepped forward. Send them away, he ordered. If it's her again, I don't want anything crossing this threshold. But the delivery van lingered at the gate for several minutes before finally pulling away. Thomas watched from the security monitor. Plates registered to a rental company, he reported. Could be nothing. Could be her testing us again. That night, the estate's new security system beeped softly in the halls, cameras casting a quiet hum as they recorded. Still, Maya found herself unable to sleep. She sat in the nursery, the dim nightlight casting a golden glow over Olivia's sleeping form. Every creak of the old house sent her heart racing. Near midnight, Daniel entered, his expression drawn but calm. I've spoken to the police chief, he said. They'll send patrol cars past the estate at random hours. If she's watching, she'll know we're not alone in this. Maya nodded but didn't look away from Olivia. She's not going to stop until she gets what she wants. Then we make sure she never gets it, Daniel replied. He hesitated, then added, Maya, I know this has been hell, but you've handled it with strength most people wouldn't have. Whatever happens next, you have my word, I'll protect both of you. His voice carried a quiet conviction that settled deep in her chest. Outside, beyond the gates and the high stone walls, the night pressed close. Somewhere in that darkness, Evelyn was planning her next move, and Maya knew when it came. They would have to meet it not just with defense, but with a strike of their own. The next day dawned deceptively bright, the early sunlight painting the estate in warm gold, as if the walls themselves had never known fear. But beneath that fragile beauty, every soul inside was braced for the inevitable. Maya woke before Olivia, her mind already turning over the events of the past week. Evelyn's tactics had grown bolder, and Maya knew each move was calculated to push them toward a breaking point. Downstairs, Daniel sat at the long dining table, coffee steaming beside a thick folder of legal documents. He glanced up as Maya entered, offering a brief but genuine smile. The judge has agreed to hear our petition tomorrow morning, he said. If we present the photos, the GPS bear, and the attempted intrusion, it should be enough to get a temporary full custody block. Maya sat opposite him, fingers curling around her mug. And if she spins it, says I'm the one who's dangerous? Daniel's gaze was steady. Then we counter every lie with fact. She's not untouchable anymore, Maya. She's made mistakes, and we'll use them. Mid-morning brought a small reprieve. Margaret took Olivia into the garden, letting her toddle among the late-blooming roses while Maya sat nearby. The sun a welcome change from the constant tension of shadowed rooms. Thomas was never far, patrolling the perimeter with the quiet vigilance of someone who had seen too many threats to take any lightly. But the peace fractured just before lunch. A black sedan rolled up to the main gate, its windows tinted too dark to see inside. The intercom buzzed. Thomas's voice came sharp over the speaker in the hall. Identify yourself. A pause, then a woman's voice calm, too calm. I'm here to see my daughter. I suggest you open this gate before I make things very unpleasant for all of you. Maya's blood ran cold. It was Evelyn. Daniel strode to the security panel. You're in violation of a court order, he said into the intercom. Leave now, or the police will be called. A soft laugh crackled through the speaker. Oh, Daniel, you've always been so dramatic. This isn't over a piece of paper. It's about what's mine. Daniel signaled Thomas, who picked up the phone to alert the local police. But before the call could connect, the sedan's engine roared to life, and the car sped away, tires spitting gravel. She's escalating, Thomas said grimly. Showing her face at the gate in broad daylight means she doesn't care about consequences anymore. The afternoon was tense but uneventful, though every creak of the floorboards set Maya on edge. She stayed close to Olivia, her mind replaying Evelyn's voice. That night, the unease bloomed into something tangible. It was just past midnight when the estate's new security system shrieked to life, alarms blaring through the halls. Maya was on her feet instantly, scooping Olivia from her crib as Margaret appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. Stay in here, Margaret ordered, already moving toward the hall. Maya ignored the command, following with the child clutched tight against her. In the foyer, Daniel and Thomas were moving fast. Daniel with a flashlight, Thomas with the weight of a gun holstered at his side. "North fence breach," Thomas called. Camera caught movement too fast to be an animal. They followed the beam of the flashlight toward the far end of the property, where the tall iron fence met the tree line. The mud was freshly disturbed, and a piece of dark fabric clung to the metal, snagged on its pointed edge. Daniel picked it up, holding it to the light. It was from a coat black, high-quality wool, Evelyn's style. "She was here," Maya said, her voice low. "Close enough to touch the house." Daniel turned to Thomas. "Double the night patrols. If she's willing to scale the fence in the middle of the night, she's capable of anything." Back inside, the alarms reset, but no one slept. Maya sat in the nursery, Olivia's small hand curled around her finger, her mind racing. This wasn't just about fear anymore, it was about strategy. Evelyn wanted them to react, to be constantly on edge. If they kept playing defense, eventually she'd find her opening. By dawn, Maya had made up her mind. When Daniel came into the room, she looked up, eyes clear despite the sleepless night. "We can't keep waiting for her to make the next move," she said. "We need to take this fight to her." Daniel studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I was hoping you'd say that, because I've been making plans." Outside, the sun rose pale over the estate, gilding the wet grass and the high walls. It was beautiful, but Maya didn't mistake it for safety. The war for Olivia's future was shifting, and this time, they weren't going to be the ones retreating. By the next morning, the estate felt less like a home and more like the headquarters of a quiet war. Daniel's plans, as he'd called them, began to take form before breakfast. A new face appeared at the dining room table, a man in his late 40s with a steady gaze and the kind of calm that comes from years of calculated danger. "This is Victor Hale," Daniel introduced. "Former private security, specialized in counter-surveillance. He's going to help us take control of this situation." Victor's handshake was firm, his tone measured. "My job isn't just to keep her out. It's to understand how she's been getting close and stop her before she can try again." Maya studied him, noting the way his eyes scanned the room, the subtle positioning of his chair so his back wasn't to the door. This wasn't just muscle, this was someone who thought in layers. After breakfast, Victor began his work. He walked the grounds with Thomas, inspecting the fence line and tree cover. He moved inside to study the camera feeds, rewinding to footage from the previous night's breach. "She's clever," he said finally, pausing on a frame that showed the faint outline of a figure just beyond the floodlight's reach. "She knows where the blind spots are, and she's not working alone. Someone's been feeding her information from inside." The words dropped like a stone in the room. Daniel's expression hardened. "You're saying she's paying someone here?" "It's possible," Victor said. "But even if she's not, she's getting details she shouldn't have. That means leaks." The rest of the morning was spent quietly, deliberately. Staff moved through their tasks, but an undercurrent of suspicion lingered in every glance. Maya kept Olivia close, retreating to the nursery with Margaret, while Daniel and Victor questioned key employees one by one. Just after noon, Margaret entered with a folded slip of paper. "This was left in the kitchen," she said, handing it to Daniel. The note was handwritten, the ink slightly smudged. "You can't keep her forever. She'll come to me when she's ready." Maya felt her chest tighten. She was inside again. Victor shook his head. "Not necessarily. Notes like this can be slipped in with deliveries, handed off to a third party, but the timing's deliberate right after last night's breach, right before the court hearing." Daniel crumpled the note. "She's trying to rattle us before we go in front of the judge." That evening, they gathered in the study to go over the plan for the morning. The hearing would be brief, but every detail mattered. "Maya," Daniel said, "you'll be there, but you won't speak unless directly addressed. I'll present our case security breaches, the bear with the tracker, the photos, the attempted gate entry, last night's fence climb. It's a strong pattern of harassment." "And if she spins it?" Maya asked. "We have evidence," Daniel replied firmly. "She has accusations. Judges care about proof." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She paced the nursery, watching Olivia's chest rise and fall in the soft glow of the nightlight. Every muscle in her body was tight with the knowledge that tomorrow could either reinforce their defenses or crack them wide open. At 3 a.m., she finally sat, her hand resting on the crib rail. "I'll keep you safe," she whispered, the promise as much for herself as for the sleeping child. Morning came too quickly. The drive to the courthouse was tense, the city outside the tinted windows a blur of gray winter light. Victor followed in a second vehicle, scanning every intersection for tails. Inside the courthouse, the air was cool and sterile, the kind of place where emotion was meant to be stripped away, leaving only fact. Evelyn was already there, dressed in a sleek navy suit, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. She looked at Maya as though the entire courtroom were an audience for their private battle. The hearing began, Daniel presenting the evidence with clipped precision. The judge listened without interruption, occasionally glancing at the photos or the small bag containing the dismantled GPS tracker. When it was Evelyn's turn, her voice was smooth, her tone almost mournful. She painted herself as a mother locked away from her child by a jealous husband and a manipulative caretaker. Maya kept her face neutral, though her hands clenched under the table. Then, midway through Evelyn's statement, Victor leaned down to Daniel and murmured something. Daniel's eyes sharpened. "Your Honor," he said when Evelyn finished, "with the court's permission, we have additional evidence regarding last night's events." At a nod, Victor stepped forward, placing a laptop on the evidence table. The screen lit up with thermal camera footage, Victor's own addition to the estate's defenses, showing a figure scaling the north fence, her face illuminated briefly by the infrared lens. It was Evelyn. The judge's gaze hardened. "Miss Barrington, do you care to explain this?" Evelyn's composure faltered, just for a moment, before she recovered. "I was concerned for my daughter's welfare. I wanted to see her." The judge made a note. "We'll be issuing a temporary full custody block pending further review. Any visitation will be court supervised, and Miss Barrington, any further attempts to approach the estate without permission will result in criminal charges." As the gavel fell, Maya exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. Outside, the cold air bit at her cheeks, but it carried a hint of relief. Still, she knew this wasn't over. Evelyn had lost ground, but a cornered opponent was often the most dangerous. Daniel seemed to sense her thoughts. "This buys us time," he said quietly, "and we'll use it to end this." Maya nodded, tightening her hold on Olivia. The fight wasn't finished, but for the first time, they were stepping into the next round with the advantage. The winter sun was already dipping low when the convoy of cars pulled back through the estate gates, the metal closing with a satisfying clang. The weight of the court's decision still hung in the air, a mixture of relief and the unspoken awareness that this was only a temporary victory. Maya carried Olivia inside, her arms aching but her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Margaret met them in the foyer, her eyes scanning Maya's face. "How did it go?" The judge granted the block. Daniel answered before Maya could. "Full custody to me for now. Any visits she gets will be supervised by the court." Margaret's lips pressed into a thin, satisfied line. "Good. That woman doesn't belong anywhere near this child." Victor followed them in, setting down his briefcase. "Temporary or not, the block changes the game. She'll be looking for a new angle now, either through legal loopholes or something more desperate. We need to keep our guard up." Daniel nodded. "I know." They gathered in the study to debrief. The room, with its dark oak shelves and soft leather chairs, felt almost safe, the crackle of the fireplace filling the silences between words. Thomas stood near the window, eyes on the grounds beyond. If she's smart, she'll disappear for a few weeks, regroup. But if she's desperate, he didn't finish the thought. Maya shifted Olivia to her other arm, feeling the child's head nestle against her shoulder. She won't just disappear, she's too proud, and she wants to prove she can still get to us. Which means, Victor said, she'll test the perimeter again but not in the same way. Maybe through someone we trust, maybe through a weak point she hasn't used before. They began making lists, staff, rotations, delivery schedules, ways to minimize outside contact without locking the estate down completely. As the plans took shape, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her, though every glance out the tall windows revealed nothing but winter's bare trees. That evening, after Olivia was asleep, Daniel came to the nursery. He leaned against the doorframe, watching Maya straighten the blanket over the crib. "You've done more for her than anyone else has, you know that?" Maya glanced at him, surprised by the softness in his voice. "I'm just doing what I can." "What you're doing is more than that," he said. "You're giving her safety. You're giving her a chance to grow up without fear." She didn't answer right away, just brushed a hand over Olivia's hair. Finally, she said, "That's all I want." Downstairs, Victor and Thomas reviewed the latest camera upgrades. "We're adding motion sensors here, here, and here," Victor said, tapping the blueprint of the estate grounds. "If she tries to come over that fence again, we'll know before she's halfway across." Just as the meeting wrapped up, the phone in the kitchen rang. Margaret answered, her face tightening at the voice on the other end. "It's for you," she said to Daniel, handing him the receiver. He took it, listening in silence for several moments before hanging up. His expression was grim. That was the police chief. Someone broke into one of Evelyn's storage units last night. The lock was cut, and the unit was trashed. "You think she staged it?" Thomas asked. "Could be. Or it could be someone else sending her a message," Daniel replied. "Either way, it means there are other players in this now." The thought settled like a shadow over the room. Evelyn was trouble enough on her own, but if someone else was involved, the danger could double overnight. Later that night, Maya found herself unable to sleep. She wandered down to the kitchen for tea, only to find Victor at the table, cleaning a small flashlight. He looked up. "Couldn't sleep?" She shook her head. "Feels like the quiet's too loud, if that makes sense." "It does," Victor said. "That's when you know something's coming." They talked for a while. And though Victor shared little about his past, his calm steadiness reassured her. Still, as Maya returned to the nursery, she couldn't shake the sense that their reprieve was fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Upstairs, Olivia stirred, letting out a soft sigh. Maya sat beside the crib until the child settled again. Outside, the grounds lay still under the cold moonlight. But somewhere beyond those walls, Evelyn was watching, planning, waiting for her moment. And when it came, Maya knew they would have to be ready not just to defend, but to end this war for good. The next chapter of their lives wouldn't be about surviving her attacks. It would be about making sure she never had the chance to strike again. This story reminds us that evil doesn't always come charging through the front door. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, disguised as entitlement, jealousy, or manipulation. Maya's ordeal shows the devastating impact that lies, prejudice, and unchecked pride can have not only on individuals but on entire families. It also reveals the importance of courage in the face of fear. Maya could have walked away, but she chose to stay and protect Olivia, even when it meant standing against powerful people. Her quiet strength became the shield that kept the child safe, proving that true guardianship is defined by love and sacrifice, not by blood or status. Daniel's journey teaches us that justice often requires persistence and vigilance. It's not enough to react to threats, you must anticipate them, understand them, and dismantle them piece by piece. By surrounding himself with trustworthy allies, he created a fortress not just of stone and steel, but of loyalty and shared purpose. Most importantly, the story underscores that dignity and truth cannot be erased by false accusations or intimidation. In a world where lies can travel faster than facts, those who stand their ground, protect the innocent, and refuse to be bullied will ultimately reclaim their peace. In the end, courage, unity, and integrity are the greatest defenses against injustice, and sometimes, the quietest defenders, those who act not for recognition, but for what's right, leave the deepest mark.